The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, powered by Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. So on this episode of the Give Us the Dirt podcast, we have with us a guest whose resume is one of the longest and most diverse I've ever seen. We're going to track all the way through this story, and I promise you, you're going to love it. Everything from starting a paving company to serving as mayor pro tem of Asheboro, North Carolina, to acting as the vice chairman of the NCDOT Piedmont Triad Rural Planning Organization, real estate broker, even a licensed private pilot. Today's guest could truly give the Dos Equis guy a run for his money on most interesting man in the world, and I can't wait to dig into it. Walker Moffitt, who is on top of everything else, currently a project manager for the Piedmont region of Sharpe Brothers, a division of Versilio Grogan. Walker, welcome.
Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate you having me here today. And I guess you proved I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So
yeah. Hey, you were everything. You were everything. No, that's this has been. I've had a blast just trying to get ready for this thing. I was showing you. I usually get a page or two of notes that I want to work through. You got 4 pages of stuff that we're going to talk about today, and I know we're not going to get to all of it, but I can't wait to just get caught up with you. I haven't seen you in a long time, but hear what you've been up to, and I want to hear a little bit of the story that I'm sure I haven't heard before. I've heard a lot of your stories, but not...
Yes, and some repeatable and some maybe...
Some can't make the podcast.
Yeah, some aren't construction related.
So the one thing that is constant on the podcast, and I know you've heard it because you've listened to a couple of them, haven't you?
I have. They're very interesting. You do a great job with them.
Are you just saying that because you're on it now and you have to? Or do you really like them?
No, I really like them, because I know a lot of the people. And I have feel like I've gotten to know the first one, Brian McManus. Yep. I knew a little of the story from Brian and from Steve Brooks, other people. Yeah. But I really felt like I knew him after the broadcast. I mean, it's very personable, and I just appreciate the way you handle all this.
Well, I have a blast doing it. Matter of fact, Brian's episode, we've had so many people reach back out saying they want, we missed some stuff. Yeah. And I didn't realize at the time we were talking, and we talked about Brian coming on, joining Larry and being part of the business, it growing, and now here it is today. And someone pointed out to me, they said, Brandon, you never talked about how Brian became owner of Grading Company. What happened there? So we're going to have a second episode of that one. So we'll get Brian back in here.
That could be the episode of how much can you spend on a race car?
Yes, it can. Well, so that we introduced our guests in a special way. How would Joanne introduce you to a group of strangers?
Oh, be prepared.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. She, I'm sure she would go with outgoing, probably as an adjective, and honest, in my opinion, and forthright. Believe what he says, and as unbelievable as it may be, it'll be true. And I think she'd say, that I'm probably a serial entrepreneur. Never met a deal in the world I didn't want to see through and figure out some way to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, she did. She said all those things, among many more other things that she said. But no, we did. We talked to her, and it was she had nothing but great things to say. You guys have been through 42 years?
42 years of marriage.
That she stood by your side.
She has. We were engaged for 2 years and dated for a year before that. So we're in the 45-year exclusivity club.
That's awesome. Congratulations. She's a special lady. I know.
Oh, she's a patient woman.
Yes. Well, so I was thinking, have you seen, this is going to be a little random, but hang in there with me. Have you seen the movie American Underdog?
No.
It's the Kurt Warner story.
Okay.
So my dad, which I know you know my dad. You guys worked together at APAC for a lot of years. Dad told me, he said, you got to watch this movie, American Underdog, about Kurt Warner. And I did. I watched the movie. It was absolutely incredible. And then we talked afterwards, and he said, what'd you think of the movie? I said, it was amazing. I had no idea that story had all those different turns and that he came up that way and he's done all those things. And Dad said, how many quarterbacks have a life worthy of a movie about him? And I said, none. He's the only one. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, how many contractors live a life that warrants a movie about them. And I think you could. I really do. I think some of this stuff warrants a movie.
I'm afraid it'd be a comedy, but let's go ahead.
I'm claiming the right. So we're going to run this thing like a movie. All right. We're going to start at the end first, and we're going to talk about Walker today. You have been very successful. And I know you're very humble, and you won't say these things about yourself, but Walker, you've built a company, you've grown it, you've sold it, you've been a part of dozens of other companies that you've started. You've been married to the same woman for 42 years now. You've got a son that's in the business and doing well. You've got a great daughter-in-law, and now you got a granddaughter, Charlotte.
Yeah. Another one on the way.
And another one on the way. Congratulations. You're in a good place right now.
I think so.
So let's pretend Charlotte, and she's talking now, and she comes up to you and she, what does she call you? What will she call you?
Buddy.
Buddy. She comes up and she says, Buddy, what were you like when you were a kid?
Oh, that was a mess.
Tell me about little Walker.
Little Walker, as you can imagine, had a hard time with self-control, keeping his mouth organized. And my nickname starting in the first grade was Walker Talker.
Walker Talker.
And I spent a lot of time in the hallway with a single chair.
You stayed in trouble?
I did. It was always, it never was lost on me. Back then they'd paddle your hand with the ruler. And it was always the Coca-Cola company supplied them. And it was always, they didn't call it the golden rule. Like it was a good rule at that time. Doing to others, you would have them doing you, and they're sitting there and just beating your hand with it.
That's how, yeah, I remember those days. I used to get it paddle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was more into middle school, but yes.
So you were that kid. You were into trouble. You were into things, and
just rambunctious. Not so much more mischievous than malicious, if you will, but just more energy than they had space for.
So one of the things I thought was pretty interesting when we were just asking, everybody has Walker stories. And so we were collecting these stories. One of them was that your serial entrepreneurship started pretty early. Like at 3 years old, you were riding in the brick truck.
I was.
And then at 5 years old, you were in the beauty shop with your mom upselling haircuts. So,
I was.
I mean, so you were doing this at an early age. Tell me some of those stories.
Well, there was opportunity, but there's something about construction and building something. I guess just it's innate in you, the satisfaction of seeing a project accomplished, and it's very hands-on. Actually, he was the first cousin, but my grandparents died at an early age, and Dal Rich was my adopted grandfather. They lived next door, and he had the brick trucks. And my great uncle, they'd been in the brick business since before World War I, and there in Asheboro. And so anyway, I loved to ride in the trucks, and we'd go down to Cantor to the sand pit, down to Harrison sand pit, and Harold Blue married Mr. Harrison's daughter. And we all know all those names, T.H. Blue, they're still in business in the area. But we eventually, to bring the story full circle, we bought Harrison Sand Company while we were in business. So the first place I was going when I was 3 years old to watch the dragline run and come home with 3 cubic yards and a single axle truck, we ended up
buying the business.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So you were born with this. You were looking for a deal and you were into business.
And anything involving a tractor or a truck, I just loved it.
What's the first business that you can recall that being a part of and really just taking ownership in? And
a real business?
Yeah.
Well, I guess aside from it'd be the mobile home park. Richland Village Mobile Home Park. My dad started that in 1969, and it was on the family farm we'd had since 1864. And it was just a method at that time, way out in the country. If we could get 4 spaces on there, they said, I can pay the property taxes. And we won't have to sell the family farm. We could pay for itself. So he got that started, and I was 12 years old at the time. And it was an exciting time in 1969. That's when the moon shot was. And we had an AT&T long line cable run across the property, and they flew it every day with a helicopter because it was a secure line from Boston to Miami. And this was literally while they were landing on the moon. and there was transmissions on that line, and we were drilling a well 10 foot from it. We had it located, but the helicopter didn't know that.
Wait a minute. So the helicopter's there because you're drilling right beside the secure line that they're communicating with the astronauts on the moon?
That's his story, but it was secure military government transmission, but we weren't in any danger of it. We had an approved drill site, and we were doing what we were supposed to, but like he didn't know that, so he lands the helicopter in the pasture next door, and here he comes. Well, that's pretty exciting stuff for 12-year-old.
Oh yeah,
it was very concerning stuff to my dad.
That's a great story. What'd you call it? The moonshot?
Yeah, but that was our first well down there, and we got the mobile home park going, and my job was to mow the septic tank fields. We didn't have city sewer down at that location at that time. But, and I had a little list, when people get off from work 3 or 4 o'clock, I knew who owed what. And so I go start knocking on doors, collecting when I was 12 years old. You
were a collector at 12.
Well, at 12, I was probably more of a requester.
Right. So, and that business just continued. You still run that business, don't you?
It's the oldest, and we. I don't know what Brown will do with it. I know I won't ever get rid of it, but they'll do something, and it's a mature business now. It's got managers and maintenance people, so it can kind of run itself with management instead of active hands-on all day, every day.
So 12 years old, you're helping your dad with the mobile home park, and then when did construction creep in? Was that always there?
Always, because we went from 4 spaces to 6 to 9, and by then I was in high school and on my way to state, and of course when the free labor left, 2 things happened in Asheboro. One, we didn't add any more mobile home spaces, and the price of natural gas plummeted. I don't know if you knew this or not, but in 1975, because we had burned wood at the house and for heat so that the natural gas wouldn't run. Well, evidently when I left, natural gas got cheap. They never burned another stick of wood at Mom and Dad's house.
Wow.
Once the free labor left, it was cheap.
So the construction part of it though, did construction come in for maintaining the park?
Yes. Yeah, and because we put all of our little water lines in and all like that.
So you're doing utilities, you're doing, I guess, building roads and...
We hired the backhoe work done then and the tractor work, and we just did the labor, the install, because it was small stuff. I mean, 2-inch water line, 3/4, or just a few feet here and there. But then once I got out of college and I decided I wanted to have me a white collar job. I wanted someplace in air conditioning and I wanted to be clean.
Where'd you go to school?
At NC State.
Okay. All right.
And picked up a couple of degrees there, one in business management and one in economics. And got out of school, I interviewed with First Union National Bank and took a job. They put me in Winston-Salem. In there, oddly, in collections.
In collections. You knew that one. You knew how to do that.
That's what got me hired, actually, was the experience at the mobile home park,
Well, before we go on from that, so going to college and doing that, was that something that you always had wanted to do? Was that something your folks told you, hey, we want you to go off and get an education and get a degree? Or did you just want to do that to get out of some of this? What was the motivation?
Primarily, it was my father's ambition.
Okay.
For me to go to college. Mom was supportive. Pop was demanding. Because I was still more interested in building stuff. If it hadn't been for that, I'd ended up doing something just directly in construction. Because I had a lot of friends that were doing it too. But he said, give it a year. Give it 1 year. That's all I'm asking you.
What did he want you to do with it?
He didn't care.
He wanted you. That was what he wanted you to do.
He wanted to see the first in our family tree.
Okay.
See if we can accomplish this.
Gotcha.
And
all right. So you're at the bank.
And I was going to tell you too. And he said, "And I'll pay off your El Camino if you'll go." I owed $600 more on it, and that sounded like, well, this is okay. I'll do this.
Oh, that was motivation. That was worth it. Oh, that's good. So you finished at NC State, and you said you wanted the white collar job. Why? You just wanted out of?
I don't know. It's just what you thought you was there for, because I worked for a paint contractor the whole time I was in school. I did from sophomore year up. I came home freshman year summer because I didn't meet Joanne till I was a sophomore. And then, but anyway, and I worked for B.B. Hedrick. That first summer I was at the quarry down there where they were doing the 220 bypass around Bisco. So back to construction. Then when I got back to Raleigh, I said, well, I'm not going to come home and work for free from a daddy if I don't have to. So I went to work for a paint contractor, William A. Paul Company there in Raleigh, big contractor. And I kept up the grounds around the houses and delivered paint. And during the wintertime, I hung wallpaper and painted door frames. So it's just...
Joanne was excited. She got her painter.
She got her a painter.
So tell me. So at some point, do you go back home? Where did you transition into the construction part of it? And
after working for First Union Bank for 90 days,
that was it.
They came up with they moved me out of Winston to Salisbury, and Joanne and I went over there and looked at an apartment. And we were thinking about moving, and it's going to put me further away from what I was wanting to do down at the mobile home park. Back, everything goes back to the mobile home park for whatever twisted reason, but it does. And the weekend before we were supposed to move, my mom on a Friday was doing a lady's hair, and her husband had an accounting firm. And Vic Brothers Electric it was a partnership with two brothers, and one of the brothers retired, and the one that retired, his son was the office manager, and he left too. They just, retired. And Lucy Lee Wright told Mama that they was looking for a bookkeeper to do the office management up there, do payroll and some invoices and things like that. Didn't I know him anybody? She says, well, Walker might. Says he wasn't sure he wanted to move to Salisbury or not. So the weekend before we were supposed to move, I went Saturday for a job interview and went to work for Vic Brothers Electric as the office manager. That's awesome. I made it 90 days in the banking business. 90 days.
Well, you tried it. You tried it. But it didn't take you long to figure out that wasn't
working for me.
So keep walking me through it. So you're at Vic now?
Well, once we got there, we bought a couple of small tractors and some implements and this sort of thing, still hiring backhoe work, and went and put in 12 more spaces at the mobile home park.
Okay.
And just quick as I could put them in, we were renting them. We didn't have to buy the homes and set them up then. There was a big market for rental homes, and the mill town was still working well, and it was a business model been in place for decades in our hometown. But as we were growing along, the demand was outpacing what I could do 3 or 4 afternoons a week, and on Saturdays. I said, I got to have more time, but I got to have money too. And Joanne was working as a admissions coordinator at a nursing home and doing well in her own right. But and we was living in one of Mom and Dad's apartments. But you still needed money. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend of mine says, I stumbled across something that I found is doing pretty good. My brother's tried it, and let's me and you go try it. And I said, well, what's that? Peddling furniture off the back of a truck on the side of the road? Really? So long story short, we rented a truck, and we left out on a Monday, and we sold that truck out by Thursday. We went to around Birmingham, Alabama, and so I did that. I took a week's vacation to go do that. And I made a right smart of money that week. Probably 6 weeks' pay. I made that in 4 days.
And you were doing the selling, weren't you?
And it was, yes, we were, and we would go to schools, go to teachers' lounge after school, and then you deliver at night, and sleep till 10 in the morning because you was going to work till midnight time you get all the furniture delivered. So I came back and I resigned from the electrical company and set up a schedule where I'd go pedal 1 week and work down at the mobile home park, putting in spaces the next week, and working every other week out of town. And I worked, had a Rand McNally Atlas, the young people have to go look that up in the history book, see what those were. Nice leather bound. And from Montgomery, Alabama, all the way down to the Gulf Coast. If that town had a dot, I've worked in it.
That was your sales territory.
That was the territory. That was the sweet spot, far enough away from High Point, North Carolina, without having to spend 2 weeks of traveling, because you lose so much traveling. We got caught in a rainy week. One time we ended up and just kept going west, trying to outrun the rain. Next thing I know, I'm in Houston, Texas. Would you like to buy a recliner? Direct from High Point, North Carolina.
I always wondered. You see those trucks, and I remember people coming by the house and wanting to sell furniture, and I always thought, does this work?
Yes, it worked.
You were selling them out. You were making bank on selling furniture.
It's dangerous coming home. That was the worst part about that business, because once you start at home, the people at the truck stops and all that, the 35-foot straight truck with the big cab over the compartment over the cab and all, they knew those trucks. And if you were headed north, you was probably empty and you probably had a few bucks with you.
Yeah.
And so we never stopped. We just had to take turns sleeping until you could get back to Randolph County.
Wow. That's pretty cool though. But all right.
It was a good problem to have, but it was a problem.
All right, so I can tell that there's no way we're going to be able to get. I'm going to have to speed you along here because there's too many businesses here. At some point, you buy a paver.
Well, oddly, you was right there.
I was there.
You was there. We were putting in the spaces, and the furniture peddling, it was going good, and we ended up running 2 trucks, but it was time. I had to pick something. And the mobile home park, that's the long-term play, from the rentals. And we'd gotten up to had a mile of road in there. I mean, we went from 150 foot of road to a mile of road. And the local big chain paver, they had an office in Asheboro, but they just, a little job like that wasn't what they were interested in and didn't do. And there wasn't any small pavers in town anymore. There'd been some. We couldn't get anybody to give a price on it. And so my dad and I, we looked at it, and he knew Jimmy Riley from Riley Paving. My mom and Jimmy were in the same second grade class. They were from Moore County down there, just knew them. So we go down there and just talk to them a little bit about this and that, and so we'd like to go. We've got a little project we'd like to do and buy some asphalt from you and see how it's done. He said, yeah, go out there and watch the crew a little bit, do whatever you want to. So we went and I told my dad, I said, we could get us a small one of these machines. They ain't nothing to this. We can do that.
We can do this.
Well, I was wrong, but it was too late. We already had the machines.
You went and bought a paver.
We bought a small Malden paver, and Gene Malden, Mr. Malden's brother, came up there and stayed with us 2 days and got us straightened out on that, and the Malden roller. And Al Morton, his dad sent a motor grader over there and got everything smoothed up, and we bought the asphalt. And ended up buying it from the Thompson Arthur plant in Asheboro, because Riley was not running the Liberty plant that particular time. But anyway, and we paved it, and then people heard about it because there wasn't anybody doing it, and they call and want to know. And I said, well, I'll come look at it, and I'll try to figure out a price for you. But now you go down there and look at this paving, and if it looks fine to you, call me back. If it don't call me back, because I don't care.
This is what we can do.
Yeah, this is it. This is what you can have, well, more called back than didn't. And next thing I know, we're in the small paving business, Richland Paving Company.
Awesome.
And that's how I got met up with Bobby
That was
Pierce.
The name of it, Richland?
Richland Paving Company.
That's incredible. That's a lesson out there to all business owners. Like, if you get to a point where you can't give somebody a price or you don't want somebody's work, you're going to put them into business.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to become your competition at some point. So
somebody will.
You got to figure out how to take care of people. So, all right. So you've started this asphalt business, and you still got the mobile home park. You still got other businesses that are going on. So this thing begins to grow, right?
We got a lot of calls, and I had 3 part-time helpers, and then I had two full-time guys, and then I couldn't get it ready fast enough. Mm-hmm. And that's where a mutual friend of ours, Larry McKenzie, introduced Bobby Pierce and myself. And of course, Bobby, or knew Bobby well, and Bobby was a great guy. Just had an untimely disease there, and that was a shame. But Bobby knew all there was to know about construction. I mean, it didn't matter what if it was in highway, heavy, civil. He had done it, from Wham and Hunt through Myrick. And he could build and grade anything, just run anything. But so he go get these jobs ready, for me, and then we get over there and pave them, and then we get bigger jobs, and then he was still putting in septic tanks, and then Myrick Construction called, and they had a septic tank at a Caraway Furniture plant in Archdale there. 33,000 linear feet of septic tank line. I mean, we've been putting in 400 feet at a house.
This is a little bit different job. Huh?
This is a different job. So they gave us the job and all, because they said, it don't matter how long it take you, we got to build the plant, and that, because Bobby knew Mr. Myrick and all. So, but anyway, that job put us on the map. We paid for a new backhoe, and we paid for a dump truck out of that thing, and we were off and running then. And that was the first substantial job that Moffitt and Pierce Construction, or as most people know it as MAPCO. That was the first real job we had. That was our first job together.
When was that?
That was in January of 1985.
85, okay. So you and Bobby, y'all have joined forces at this point. You've started MAPCO.
Yeah.
And then business is growing. You're no longer just doing roads in the mobile home park. You're out doing some major projects. You're bidding on projects.
We're bidding on projects. It's commercial work primarily. And
I imagine you had found yourself on some radars of other construction companies.
We were getting companies like J.H. Allen Construction, general contractors. That turned into our new bread and butter. Because once Myrick used you, the rest of them would use you, and we were working along on that. And then two things happened. The state started having smaller contracts, the purchase order contracts, And then there was an anomaly going on in the early 80s from the bid rigging situation with highway contractors. And Riley Paving, they didn't get taken off the bidders list, but they were a small company, much bigger than us, but a small company could do anything. So we woke up one morning and the highway department had sent word to us, could we look at some of these small jobs that are backing up? Well, yeah. And so we were on one bid on them for about 18 months or 2 years.
So because of the bid rigging and the scandal there and so many contractors being pulled from the bid list, you guys were all of a sudden, you were the best option.
For a small, reasonable size.
I didn't realize that.
Job. And then once that started, there were some humps and bumps. At different times, depending on who was in charge, our relationship with Thompson Author was rocky, and then at other times it was just the very best in the world. As they ultimately bought us out, and the key people that were there at that time were good friends and are still close, dear friends of mine, and that all worked out well. That's just circumstances and competition in business. Just normal.
Well, you guys, you didn't just have a paver at that point when that buyout happened. I mean, there was an asphalt plant.
You
were producing.
Pit. Yeah, we were doing 600,000 tons a year out of Asheboro with one plant. That wasn't supposed to happen.
That's amazing.
Yes, it'll make you tired.
So I got a few thoughts on this. So at this point, what's your dad? Where's he in the story at that point?
He's in Florida playing golf.
He's retired. He's done.
He's done.
He's checked out. He said, you got the mobile home park. I'm heading out to Florida. I'm retired. Okay. So he wasn't part of all the
No. It was shortly after Brian was born, about 1988, I'd say, when my mom kept Brian for when he was small, so Joanne could keep working there and all like that. And once he got up a little bit age, and Joanne took a little different career path and all like that, and Harold said to Minerva, "We're going to Florida." And they came back in like March.
That was it.
So that was, he said, "If you got it from here, I'll see you." So.
What? Okay. All right. So you, and then the other part I wanted, my dad, what you mentioned that you guys worked together. He was at Thompson Arthur, which became APAC, and Thompson Arthur was the company that ended up buying Mapco. And I was asking my dad, I said, look, there's so many funny stories out there about Walker. I said, give me a line or give me something that you remember about Walker. He said, I never will forget when he walked in and he was asking us to buy him out. And he said, we told him, look, it's bad timing. We just made this horrible deal on this other acquisition. Mm-hmm. It's not going well. And he said, I never will forget. Walker looked at us and said, well, can you make one more bad deal? I need you to make just one more bad deal. And you guys worked it out. So tell me about that. What was that process like?
Well, that bad deal, the first bad deal, it was huge. I'm sure you've heard them refer to the couch superfloss deal, and it was a monstrous deal. It was $500 million, and I forget how many asphalt plants it was across South. It was big, and it wasn't the deal was bad. The integration, the bite off was just humongous, and but for our one small deal, it was the most perfectly logical thing in the world to integrate this, because we had a high production plant in Asheboro and we were using it, and they hadn't cranked their plant in Asheboro in a few years, but it was a good fit, and Ivan Clayton, who was president at the time of Thompson Arthur, we were good friends, and we talked about how we could integrate it and what the pros and cons and the synergy would be. And he said, I think we can make this work. I'll call him. And we were the last deal that Ashland, when it was blown to Ashland Oil, we were the last deal they made. Mm-hmm.
And that's transitioned 2 or 3 times since then.
It has. I guess Oldcastle's still the keeper of it now.
So you're still working. So you're still project management. You're still,
yes.
So you're still at it. You're working with Ivan still?
Ivan still. Yeah.
And Sharpe Brothers. Tell me about Sharpe Brothers.
Well, I had, after we sold out, I had 5 years of non-compete with Thompson Arthur, and I had a handful of roles with that, but Ivan came upon an unexpected opportunity, and he ended up going to start another company and pursue that. It worked out well for him, and that's how we got back together again. But as I was there at Thompson Arthur, there's lots of new people, lots of changing and all like that, and there was a heavy corporate structure, and it wasn't the best fit for me. It wasn't like the bank. I mean, I knew and understood the work and that sort of thing, but it was just a lot of format. And so 4 years in, I went to a consultant role. And then another contractor whom I had sold my water and sewer utility division to was wanting to do some large diameter pipe jobs, and he didn't have anyone on staff whose resume could pre-qualify. And he contacted me, wanted to know if I wanted to go in partners at, and I said, no, if I wanted to go in partners, I'd still be in business, in that business. But I ended up taking a managerial role with them, and we went and did the three jobs he wanted to, and I told him that money and ability to buy out materials does not make a water and sewer contractor. It's not like asphalt. It's still just one piece of pipe at a time. And now both of us are convinced of that. so during that time, I was still in touch with Ivan, and he had sold their company, Sharpe Brothers, to the Facilio family, which are just wonderful people. I'd never met them before, but anybody in our industry had heard of them. They're obviously a large successful business similar to the Barnhills that you've interviewed as well. They so I called Ivan and told him, and he said, we're going to bid a job next month in Asheboro, and it's about a 2.5 year job, and I'd like for you to come look at the thing and take a look at the plans. And if we get the job, would you stay and build it? Yeah, I'm just watching the news, sure. And so we went up there, we looked over the plans, come up with 2 or 3 things and all like that, and it was a $30 million job. And we ended up, we were the low bidder. And I'd like to think I had something to do with that.
He got you back.
Yeah. So now we're back together, and the job went well. finished early and had a few pennies left over. And I'm sitting there. Joanne said, "What you going to do now?" I said, "Well, nobody's called wanting this truck or this phone back. I reckon I'll ride up to Greensboro in the morning."
Still here.
And so that was 10 years ago.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
been
you
there,
must still love it. I mean,
it is so much fun, at this, not having to worry and struggle with the bonding, the financing. I mean, this is literally like playing golf.
You're able to do the parts you love.
I love the satisfaction of building something, to see what you built behind you. I guess, and perversely, I enjoy dealing with the state, because that's like playing chess.
I've never heard anyone say that. But you loved it.
Well, you need to. Because you're going to deal with it.
You're going to do it.
You're going to do it. And so I manage a lot of contracts. And if things don't go just right, I handle those items, claims and that sort of thing.
Walker, so we've talked a lot about the timeline. We got the story. It's amazing story of how you've gotten to this point. What would you say, what's been your driving force? What's motivated you to do all that you've done?
Just never saw a challenge I didn't like. It's always amazed me how if you just get started doing something, calling around on the phone, it just seems to unfold.
Just move.
If you're willing, it just unfolds. And so we go from one project to the next, and you don't know what you're going to be building in 6 months, but it just shows up.
Yeah, but you do realize that you've got a unique ability to see opportunity where not everybody can. And I think that goes to your serial entrepreneurship. That, like, what is that? That you just, how do you, when you see a deal or you go into a deal like that, what are you looking for? How do you know if this one's going to work, this one's not going to work?
Well, you don't. But you just see a path forward. If I do A, B, C, and D, this will get put together. And the more often you do it, the more you know, well, this person has this I can get, or this person has that, or you put the pieces together. So it's like a puzzle box, and you dump them out, and they'll build the puzzle pieces. Could make 3 or 4 different things. It's like seems like I always use the same pieces, but no matter what the project, whether it's apartments or a mobile home park or a roadway, but you just analyze what's putting one foot in front of the other step by step, and lay it out, and then build your schedule and stick to it.
You love solving problems.
I must. I create enough of them.
Yeah. No, I think that's one thing that's, and that was one of the things that when we talked to some folks about this, is that they said he can do anything. He can fix anything. If something's broken, he'll figure it out. So you see a problem and you just want to dive in there and get your hands on it and fix it. Is that accurate?
I think it's, I like to restore Airstream campers just as a hobby, and I've got my uncle's old Studebaker. We mess with it some and all, but I'd rather fix up an old building than build a new one. Yeah. There's just something about straightening all that out and making something that was previously not well valued and bringing that to fruition that I just find satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, and that definitely explains. I mean, your love for just being involved and being mechanical and being in construction and having your hands dirty, that's just who you are, and that's been part of it. And you've been able to build a pretty incredible career in doing that. We've talked about a lot of your wins. We've talked a lot about the successes. Were there ever any moments that weren't so good?
Oh, absolutely. And anybody tells you they're not,
you seem like
you
a
might
guy,
want to check them on the test.
Well, you're always upbeat and you're a happy guy, and you always find the positive in things. But were there moments throughout this story where there were tough times?
Oh, absolutely. In the later 90s, it's like the preacher's sermon, good luck, bad luck, how do you tell? Mm-hmm. And we had two highway lettings in a row, June and July, and Bruce Green had come on as an estimator with us, and I know you know Bruce from the old Arco days and all like that, and he'd retired from there and come down there to help me some, and I needed some help bad. It was I should have done it 5 years before, but anyway, we bid off 2 roughly $11 million projects, one after the other, and they tied together, and the dirt balanced on the two of them. And we got both those jobs, and we was a little bit low on the first one, but we had local dirt. We thought it was a logical number, and then we were right on the money on the second one. But that was $22 million worth of work, and sometimes the generous bonding man is not your friend. We got them built. We finished early, but it was a monumental task. I mean, it took every resource from every source, and it was exhausting. It took a lot of banking. It took cooperation with the bonding company. I even had to buy I had to buy a second grading company and bring in additional talent. It was a big undertaking, and looking back on there, I can say, did I underestimate what we had bid off or not? Well, tell the truth, probably so. And it wasn't so much what we saw we could do. It just took a lot. It's a capital intensive business. We're sitting in a capital intensive business. It took a lot of resources, but we managed it through it, and we came out on the other end, and we still had just a little bit left over, a little jingle in our pocket from the job, and ran on for a few more years. And that's when this business is so capital intensive, and it's getting consolidated, as you know is happening then. And I don't know if there's really any small family companies left.
Yeah, is there room for a MAPCO anymore? Is there room for how does a family owned business that's going out and they've decided to get into it, they've gone and bought a paver, they bought a truck, and they want to do that. How do they compete against these?
Well, I've got a friend of mine that more than one, a couple of friends, but one in particular that always wanted an asphalt plant, and me and some other of his friends. You got to make a decision. You like horses and you're doing well. You can either have a personal life or you can have that asphalt plant. Mm-hmm. You got to decide. And then you're married to your haul radius. And it's just a challenge. And the way it's all consolidated, there's nobody left.
Yeah.
Either you're big or you own a quarry. And that's, as you also know, that's a big undertaking. I just think that business model ran its course, and so I decided it was time to move on to greener pastures.
Yeah,
before they moved on for me.
Well, your timing's always been good, and you definitely timed that one good. Walker, looking back on it, what are the moments that you're most proud of? You got one that really stands out that you say, "Hey, I got that one. I crushed that."
Well, that's hard to say. I guess the fact that I'm still here, we've had a big time. I'm very proud of my son entering into the business, and he's done a good job with it. He learned a lot, and I like to think of him as fairly unusual. You don't interview a whole lot of college graduates that's painted the underside of a Euclid truck green and look like a Martian when you climb out from under it. But I hope he was better for the experience.
Oh, he's doing great. And, it's funny. I remember when my dad, when I graduated college, I called my dad, and I had spent every high school and college summer working for APAC. Mm-hmm. I was out there on the road. Walker, you'll remember my first job. He put me, and he didn't say, "Hey, you come in here in the office and I'll take care of you." No, my first assignment was manholes and valves, raising manholes and valves. He put me out there with Mary.
Yep.
And she put me on that jackhammer, and she laughed at me all day. I had blisters everywhere, and she ended up just telling me, "Go sit down." And she moved that jackhammer around like it was nothing. But that was my first job. But I spent every high school and college summer working for him, and I called him out when I graduated, and I said, "Hey, is APAC hiring?" And he said, "Son, don't do this for a living." He said, "Go be a rock salesman." And he got me an interview with Martin Marietta, and I did. I had a great career. I had 20 years at Martin Marietta, but I love this industry. And I know that you're proud that your son's still in it. And
Ben was a wise man. He was a wise man.
Yeah, that was good advice for me. It was nothing bad about either company, but it was he definitely he said, that'll be a good path for you.
There's nothing like a jackhammer to make you improve your grades.
Well, what advice do you have? You know, let's say Charlotte comes up to you and she graduates from school and she says, buddy, is it buddy?
Buddy.
She says, buddy, I want to go buy a paver. I want to get into the construction business.
Oh, that'll be tough. I can't tell her no. So, we'll discuss the paver specific. That'd be a challenge, but there'd be some other pieces of equipment we could probably.
Well, what do you say? Yeah, and I'm using that example, but I mean, what do you think? You know, she comes to you. What would you tell her about getting into the construction business?
I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity. You know, with the Women's Business Enterprise Program. You know, and her grandmother was in the Women's Business Enterprise Program, had a fleet of dump trucks and a sand plant, and it worked very well for her. You know, so the family history is there, but I'd tell her to concentrate on the material business.
Yeah,
you know, trucking's a tough business. And there are some successful large truckers. In fact, we run into one at lunch today, and you know, but you got to have the market managed. You got to have no debt really, but be able to manage that. But materials is where it's at. You need to own that material on the truck to do good. Now, that was my goal, was to have the sand. And if I'd had the resources, would love to have a quarry, but that opportunity just was.
It's hard to get a quarry
above our head.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about capital intensive. That's the next level investment.
It is that.
So, well, what do you see as the biggest challenges for the industry going forward? It looks a lot different than it did when you were coming up through it and you were building your company. And what do you see as our challenges?
The same as everybody else. Labor pool. You know. HOOPA has set a new standard of how to solve that problem. In fact, it's a whole new process. It's not even a standard; it's a process that y'all are doing. I mean, there's been fleeting attempts at heavy equipment schools, that sort of thing I've seen in the past, but technology has met opportunity with the implementation that HOOPA has done with the simulators and the classroom, and a way to do it efficiently instead of having to have a big field and bulldozers out there and hooting up our tires, nothing up or hurts anybody. You know, that was the challenge with that model. But so getting people interested in it, and y'all are doing a magnificent job with that. You know, the generation, it's hard to go from iPhone and pad and type into your thumbs, you know, to go to shovel and rake to work your way up to equipment. So, you know, but they got to have something, and this is then between to show them the satisfaction. You know, like you've got the test models out there, and you've got the simulators. They can see what they're accomplishing, and that's what's the missing link, and they're not accomplishing. They need something in their life where they have a task and they see it through and have an accomplishment, and that's what the building business is.
That's what's missing. I agree with you. We had a guest on a few weeks back from Mississippi. It was Burns Dirt, and they were talking about how you have to. We got to get ahead of this, right? These kids, they're doing programs where they're introducing 8th graders to construction, and they're having this big career day and this expo where they bring them out and they're telling them how to mix concrete and letting them play and climb up in the machines. Like, people just aren't exposed to the industry anymore. And when they think about construction, they think about that sign. You know, that traffic control out there on the road.
Well, that's what they see.
Yeah, that's what they see. And so I think it's up to all of us to make sure that we're introducing it to them at an early age, and show them a different side of the business, the side of the business that you've enjoyed for so many years, and that I'm enjoying and your son's enjoying. And I think that falls on us.
Well, and they're top paying careers.
Oh yeah,
I mean, you know, there's at any level, you know, there's above competitive wages to be made, and you're your own holdback. You can rise to whatever level you're willing to achieve coming through construction.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Well, so what's next for you?
Well, More of the same, I suppose.
No more other businesses that you want to tackle, or any accomplishments that you like. I don't have that one yet. We're
always looking at additional opportunities at Sharpe Brothers, and if they come along, I'm usually on that team that evaluates numbers and how we may grow. And the Facilio family, I think they've bought like 4 companies in the last 24 months, primarily in Florida, but they're in the 4th generation that's very interested in growth, and I will stay a part of that for the foreseeable future, as long as they'll have me.
Yeah.
And then we've still got some more land and real estate to develop. And we'll see how the economy holds out. With there's going to be a crucial need for housing in Randolph County with the Toyota plant coming. So there's some opportunities.
That's right. That's a big project.
That's a big project.
And you guys are part of that, or
we're not part of the site work package. That went to a whole different bid process, and we were on the short list for the design build portion of that. But the time frame of it was just, it was resource intensive.
Yeah.
And our big iron was elsewhere, and it's just all time driven. It's almost like
how much dirt was that? Do you remember?
I do. It was 33 million yards.
33 million yards of dirt to move. And
they wanted it moved in 14 months, and that don't count the rock. And they're not going to meet that schedule. You ought to see them rock trails over there.
That's unbelievable.
But it's getting worked out. But we are in the process now of bidding on some of the roadway improvements surrounding it. That's our focus. That's our interest. We're chasing the asphalt.
It's so cool to hear you still having fun with this.
It's a blast.
I mean, you seem like you still got as much energy and excitement over this business as you did 25 years ago. And I love that about you.
Well, I appreciate that. You got to get up in the morning and do something.
Well, that was one of the things we were talking about. When I was asking people, what do you love about Walker? Very giving heart, always happy. Can fix anything. The other thing is you're so knowledgeable about so many different subjects.
That gets back to couldn't decide what you want to be when you grow up.
Either you're knowledgeable about it or you're really good at selling that you're knowledgeable about it. But and then they talked about too, you nickname everybody. And we're not going to talk about what you nicknamed me. That one's not making this podcast. But for whatever reason, when you nicknamed, it was
meant with love.
I know, yeah, it was. But the problem with your nicknames is they always stick. Like you call somebody a nickname one time, and they've got to live with that for the rest of their lives.
I hadn't really thought of it that way.
Yeah, we're going to cut this thing before it gets out. Walker, thank you so much for coming. Thanks for hanging out with us. You've been an inspiration to me, and I know so many others. One of the things that I know you didn't mention this, but I know you've got to be proud of is that your reputation and your relationships that you've built over the years. You know so many people, and you've inspired so many people, and you've worked with so many people, and you should be very proud of that because that your reputation, your character, that's one of the few things that we can control.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's very, very kind words. And when you get right down to it, I mean, the people are everything. You couldn't do any of this without your relationships.
Yep.
That have been built over the years. And if you do what you say you'll do, it'll go a long ways. If you don't, it won't last long.
Yeah, that's great words. Great words. Walker, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, Brandon.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopaw Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina. And visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com. And subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.